Alright, on that note, shall we move on?
Yeah, move on to Heavy Object. We spent about maybe 10 minutes on that, whatever. That's episode 6 and 7. I'm not gonna go with the titles because I'm frankly tired of talking about them.
Fosh, let me quickly summarize my thoughts on episode 6.
Go
Fuck this bullshit. That was not an episode of a TV show. That was bullshit. That's all I can say. What happened? Okay.
Yeah, that was more like a big, long setup episode. I guess the new goal is they're working together with another heavy object from another country.
Yeah, but the actual
they're trying to find someone.
Yeah, but the experience of watching this show is divided into scenes of, okay, let's watch Havia and Quinn jack off each other about, oh man, look how hot this girl is. Then Quinn gives Milianda a jazz flute orgasm. There's some weird shit about Felicia, as there always is, and then there's like some kind of creepy government guy who's like trying to organize them. And at the very end, they're like, oh shit, the military is getting really bad about this, but you had to sit through lots of time where it's just Havia and Quinn just like, man, isn't this girl hot? And it's
well, I mean, that's not really no different in a lot of anime. They do that. There's a famous idol girl that's coming into school. They're gonna talk about her all the time. Or if there's a new transfer student, they're gonna talk about her.
That's bullshit writing no matter what show it's in, Fosh, and I hate it every time. And it's no exception here. I don't put up with that bullshit.
Well, unfortunately, people like Heavy Object. They want to talk about it. That's how it goes. And it's supposed anyway.
Those people aren't on Mechanord. I'm not even gonna pretend I care. Let's just move on to episode 7, because that was actually worth talking about.
Alright, well. I thought episode 6 had some funny points, having that new girl introduced, but yeah. 7, they're still doing the same thing, where they're, I guess, working together with another group to find this other object, like it's hidden in all these different areas. So they're basically trying to find out where it's at. And it's more of that, just them working together. Kind of funny watching that.
Yeah. Just
how they interact, but as far as the same thing with episode 6, they just talked a lot.
The actual plot of what's going on, they're basically invading Australia in a multinational organization made up of, oh my god, I hate these names so much. There is the Legitimate Kingdom, the Intelligence Union, the Hope Organization, and the Safe Union, and I believe that's the name of the 4 biggest organizations on this planet. Can you try at least somewhat to make interesting names? Like, fuck it. Anyway, they're invading Oceania, and their goal is, okay, there's a dictator. He's ruling over his populace with a older mech, so it's not as good as the baby Magnum, which has lost every fight it's been in so far.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still apparently not as good as that. And the dictator who rules Australia, who is not Immortan Joe from Mad Max, although I wish it was, he is planning to basically start murdering the civilians if things get bad. And when Havia and Quinn, they're doing basically a scouting mission to make so that we can find ways for the mechas to get through after, oh yeah, there's a scene where the miniskirt Santa and Melinda take off all their clothes and start spraying themselves down with liquids for reasons of stuff. Oh,
fuck it. That they get overheated and notice the objects, but yes.
Sure it is.
But we don't, I mean, we're not, I don't know, Quinn and don't see that, so it's just up to their imagination, really.
Yeah, let's just move on, okay? I feel bad for even bringing it up. Anyway, so Quinn and Havia are off doing reconnaissance, and one of the things that was actually interesting about these series of episodes is there's a lot of journalists who are like hanging around trying to get a scoop, and a lot of them are like former military people who were displaced because in a world where you have giant robots fighting wars, the use of ground soldiers is not as good unless you are Havia and Quinn. So one of those ground soldiers sees not one of the ground soldiers, one of those reporters who's a former mercenary. And the logic of the show is kind of weird, but here's my comprehension of it. Excuse me. This guy sees a village and it's being occupied by the militia, by the dictator's forces, and he starts sniping those dictator's forces. For some reason, this causes those dictators' forces to start murdering civilians. I still have no idea why exactly is it that all these people are trying, all the dictators trying to kill his own people. But as it turns out, excuse me. As it turns out, this causes basically a chain of events where the dictator is going to mobilize their heavy object to start murdering civilians. Havia and Quen, they kidnap the cameraman. They bring him back to base. He goes through a very odd torture scene where he says, okay, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to wait for my lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Then he immediately goes back to telling his entire motivation, his entire life story. Okay. Anyway, it turns out that after that, after that, Fralacia, they mobilize their troops. They're trying to find out where exactly the mech is. They think they have a signal. It turns out this might be a giant booby trap for a reactor to a heavy object that is going to go nuclear.
Right.
And then Havia and Quen, they just happen to figure out exactly where the real mech is, and then they very immaturely are like, hey, if we're right, you gotta step on our faces. Ha ha ha. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did kind of figure it out kind of easily, but I think it was also the camera guy, whatever news guy, was figuring it out too, where it was at. I guess he knows where it was.
Yeah, and also...
He figured out the whole trap thing, okay?
Yeah, and it turns out that, oh man, the government is secretly running all the world's wars or whatever, and... You can tell... You, the listener, I'm sorry, because you can tell I don't want to talk about this. And I think the most important part of any reviewer or any anime blogger's job is to say, this is why you should watch this show. I don't think there's any reason to watch Heavy Object. I can't recommend it for any reason. I don't want to talk about it for any reason. There's nothing about Heavy Object that I think inspires a enjoyable reading. It's not even good enough to hate watch. Like, it's not dumb enough to hate watch. It's not entertaining. Just, I can't do this.
Well, but unfortunately, it's part of the block of stuff from Mix. But yeah, I mean,
we can drop this. Gosh, we have the power. We can stop this.
I'm not even I mean, I enjoy some of the parts of it, but yeah, the other parts aren't really that great. I mean, I can agree that the script-wise is not really written that well. And for me, my biggest downfall of the series would, if it had more, characters that did stuff instead of the Quinn and Javier all the time, probably would be better. And, Melinda actually did something, but other than that, yeah, I mean, it's just basically those two saving the world. It's kind of weird how they always do it, but yeah.
If wishes were fishes, we'd all be fishermen. I don't know. The point is, I can't talk about this show. Like, there's literally nothing in the show that entertains me. Like, there's nothing about the show that is a reason to watch it.
Right, yeah. That's true. Well, I guess we'll jump off that.